Hey everyone, it's Jen again. This past week I was taking a break from game development and just working on some craft stuff. One of the things that I've always enjoyed doing is finding ways to kind of take some of my 2D artwork or designs and making them into like tangible physical objects in the 3D world. So in the past I've done things like like costumes or like little dolls. This time around, I was taking a look at what I have access to at the library, which is a 3D printer. We have a Prusa. We've got a silhouette cameo, which is similar to like a Cricut, it's a paper cutter. We've got a CNC machine, Carvey, and a laser cutter, the X tool. So I know that there's like services out there where you can order to have these things like kind of manufactured for you. But I think one of the things that maybe in modern industrialized life that we've kind of lost sight of in the name of like efficiency is this idea of just having like ownership over like the entire creative process. That, yeah, if I make it on my own, maybe I'll have to put more time and thought into like designing it, and it might not turn out as perfectly because each one of my little pins, even if I use the same method for creating all of them, are going to be just a little bit different because of like the human, I guess, construction of like putting it together. Is it's gonna have like some imperfection in there that maybe you wouldn't have. Also, my lack of experience because I don't use these tools and make these crafts like all the time. This is my first time trying to make something like a pin. So yeah, there's going to be some trial and error, there's going to be some mistakes, there's going to be some inconsistency, but I really enjoy the process of both like designing how the pin is going to work and operating the machines and assembling the different parts. And I'm gonna go off on a little bit of a tangent here. I was gonna talk about my pin making process, but I want to go back to like my childhood. And during my childhood, I was encouraged to try a lot of different things without like the intention of making it like my life or profession or even, you know, making it anything that would be like a trade skill or anything like that. Like I learned how to ride a bike without planning to be, I don't know, an Olympic athlete, Olympic bicycler. I learned how to swim without being a competitive swim person. Just stuff like that, learning how to roller skate. And I can still do these things years, decades later. Not well, but I can do them competently enough. And I won't say that I learned how to do these things in like an insignificant amount of time. Like certainly it was more effort than just learning in a 15-minute YouTube video. But they were still worthwhile, and not just because I guess I have the confidence of being around water that if I fell into a pool I wouldn't panic and die. Like maybe swimming is a bad example, but like learning how to play softball, I can still throw a ball and catch a ball even though I haven't played like softball for so many decades, and it was only such a small window of my life. But raising my son, it's like, oh, I can still show him how to throw a ball and how to catch it. And the same goes for like a lot of sports that I just dabbled in, and I am not an athletic person at all. Yeah, and somehow that attitude of just kind of exploring these different things, trying these different things, learning these different skills just for the sake of having fun in that moment and not with the intention of like making a marketable skill. Somehow that got squashed somewhere in my adulthood, where my identity became like an artist, and doing art had to be like this technical skill that I had to build, that had to be marketable, or I wasn't going to be a real artist. And I didn't have time to learn other things and focus on other things because I had to put everything into that one basket, or I wasn't going to be able to compete with the other artists who like did better artwork than me or something like that. And it wasn't until I stopped doing art professionally that I kind of reclaimed ownership of it, that I'm not just an artist. I don't even really like introduce myself as an artist when I talk to people. It's just a skill that I have. Certainly it's a skill that I put more time and effort into becoming proficient, and it's one of my stronger skills. But like, I guess in some ways, just the way I wouldn't go up to somebody and say, I'm a singer, I'm a sewer, I'm a cooker, I'm a cleaner, I'm a whatever other skills that I've learned how to do in life. I don't go up and introduce myself by that skill. I've kind of don't really want to just identify with like being an artist or a game developer as something that I do, but it's not like who I am. And I never want to feel like pigeonholed into a box like that again. And so when I was thinking that I wanted to make crafts this week, it didn't seem like it would be fun to just like take my artwork that I already know how to do proficiently and just like send that to somewhere else to have those pins made. Like, I wanted to be as involved in the process as I could, and I wanted to refresh some of my skills on using these machines and softwares and kind of exercise that part of my mind to design the parts for these very like little simple things myself. And I find that process to be very rewarding, and I find to be able to hold the pins that I've like designed at the end of the process to be like that much more satisfying. I think that there comes this point where you develop a certain amount of proficiency, where the amount of time and effort that you put into improving that skill then kind of tapers off, where it's like, I've become proficient at this skill, and now all the hours and that I put into the craft, it becomes almost like overtraining a muscle, where your body becomes very efficient at doing like a particular type of exercise, and so you could keep doing it, but like you're probably not going to get much stronger from doing that exercise in a way that you would get stronger if you like switched to a different type of exercise, if that makes any sense. I'm actually not like a fitness trainer, so I'm just going by what I've heard. Not that what I've experienced, but from what I've heard. It's good to diversify the muscles that you train and the way that you train them and the intensity and all that, so that you can build them up to be stronger, versus like if I am just doing the same thing over and over again. I guess I could increase like the weight that I'm lifting. I could try to challenge myself with like new things to draw, but it's still not going to be like the type of growth that you have when you lack proficiency, when you're completely weak in something, when you don't know what you're doing at all. And I find that trying new things and learning new things is just more interesting. I don't think I'll get tired of doing game development anytime soon, because there's so much to learn with it, and there's so many different like types of games that would require like different types of like thinking, programming, and design, that it seems like less of a monotonous box that like doing something like comics was, or even animation to a certain extent. And certainly it wasn't a waste of time to learn those skills, just because I'm not applying those skills directly into a job. Like, I love the fact that I can use like my art skills and my animation skills in my game development, and even in like this making these little pins like that, I can incorporate things like my artwork into that. But anyways, I'm gonna try to get back to the point of this video. I just really find it important to try to remind people that we get caught up into this idea that we've got to be productive, that we've got to be efficient, that we've got to be the best. And that if we're not, then we should just offshore that job to somebody else who it's their specialty, it's their profession, it's their expertise to make X, Y, and Z. But I'm just here to give you permission to go ahead and do it, even if you're not the best and you're not the expert, because learning different processes and developing different skills, I don't think should stop at childhood. I think you should be able to explore all these things for just the pure fun enjoyment of it, and be able to have the ownership of those skills. Why not? Okay, I'm gonna go back to my making pins. So one of the reasons why also I decided that I was going to make these pins for myself is because I don't like waiting. I like being involved in the entire process, and yeah, it just gives me more control over like what designs I decide to use, how many that I want to make, and we're going to keep our costs down. So as I was saying before, I do have access to those machines. I noticed that I could purchase pins and magnets that both had 10mm diameter, so I thought, oh, if I do end up making pins or magnets, this will let me like use the design for like both of these things. I can just switch out magnet or pin. I bought a Let's Resin UV starter kit for $18 because I've always wanted to experiment with resin, as I think that resin seems like it would be a pretty versatile material to work with to finish off different types of artwork, to give it that little bit of like luster and dimensionality. I bought some Mod Podge for $6. I bought some basswood, some matte black PLA, and some glossy photo paper to print out the artwork with. So first thing that I did is I took these designs that Ekkoberry made for Gacha Date, because I always thought that these little chibis would be really cute as pins. And I created an outline around them in Photoshop, just using the tool, the stroke. So we are taking the artwork and we're just right clicking, and we are we're double clicking. It's funny how like now I'm actually trying to like go through it. I can't remember the actual steps because it's all like muscle memory now. Creating a stroke, positioning it on the outside, making it 10 pixels at 100% opacity. And this is basically just to make the shape simpler, to make it easier to work with, in order to like cut out on both the Silhouette machine and to 3D print, so that all these pieces will kind of fit together a little bit more accurately if the shape is a little bit more simplified. So taking this this shape with the outline, we're gonna use these PNGs when we go to bring it into the Silhouette for cutting out all these little printouts, because I certainly don't want to cut these out by hand. And I just kind of made this clipping mask to make it as this flat image so that I could easily convert it to an SVG in order to extrude it to make a 3D model of it for making the frame. And then I also kind of went ahead and duplicated this too. Oops, I forgot to merge these groups. And we went ahead and gave it yet another outline. And this was going to be used for making the 3D model for the frame. So what that process kind of looked like was converted those shapes to SVGs, brought them into the super simple baby 3D modeling program Tinkercad, because it's just the easiest way to do this. You can just import the SVG. It's going to automatically extrude it, and then you can just set its height. I choose to work in millimeters because it's a little bit more accurate for what I'm doing. Take the two shapes that we created, and we're just going to make one of them lifted from the build plate. I chose to make it that backing just a millimeter high. So we just lifted that second one. Sorry, there's a cylinder here that's going to be a hole cut out for where the pin's going to go. Change that from a solid shape into a hole. Take these two objects and just merge them. Oops, I think yeah. So then we have this little cookie cutter looking thing. And then this is going to be where the pin backing is going to be. We're going to make that into a hole too. And then merge those shapes. And then we can just take this file, and then we just would export the one shape as like an OBJ or STL, and then we'll take it into the slicer. I did print it at a very high density. I think it was like 90% fill. And on the Prusa it was like at ultra detail, but they still only took about like about 15 minutes per pin backing. And in my mind I was thinking, well, having this little ridge around the edges of the cutout artwork will give the resin kind of like that surface tension that'll make it easier to apply without me having to worry about like containing the resin. So I never worked with the resin before, so I wasn't sure how viscous it would be. I was really happy with the end result. So I'm kind of glad that I ended up making these like little cookie cutters for the artwork to sit in. After I did a test on just plain copy paper to make sure that all my cutouts were fitting inside that 3D model that I printed. You can see it here on the Prusa slicer, the settings. Printed out the artwork on the glossy paper and coated it with the Mod Podge in order to help protect the ink from the resin. Don't have any pictures of me actually working with resin because I had my gloves on and I was like sloppy with it, and didn't want it anywhere near my phone or anything like that. So I did manage to take a picture of the UV light curing the resin after the fact, but yeah, didn't want to work with that with the gloves and stuff. And this is my final product. Can see here where there is a hole for the pin backing to sit in nicely. And then we have our nice shiny resin coating, and everything is very neat and tidy. So that worked out really well, and yeah, I had a lot of fun in the process. And it was just like kind of a nice switch up. Every now and then I get this like kind of itch to do something crafty, and in the past it's been, like I said, sewing, sometimes making things like stickers or bookmarks, and this time I just wanted to kind of take that take it to another level and try something that involved a few more machines and a little bit more, I guess, complexity to designing some different parts. And I also did work on this magnet that is kind of the similar principle, except for instead of using the 3D printer, I cut the wood on the CNC machine. So there was a couple other like just like from a design sense problems that I had to solve, because I was trying to maximize the amount of these little frames that I could cut from one piece of wood, but you have to like clamp it down, and then as it's cutting, the material is not as secure because you can only clamp it in so many places, and if everything's cut too close together, the pieces could end up flying out, and the material can start to shift. It's a little bit hard to describe, but yeah, I had to watch like the first test like pretty closely, and there was a couple frames that ended up getting kind of ruined that I couldn't end up using, so I had to be a little bit less ambitious and make more spacing and tabs to hold the frames from being fully cut out. And then those tabs had to be like manually cut and sanded, so the whole process was a little bit messier and less clean than I would have liked. So perhaps I should have just 3D printed these frames as well, but I wanted to experiment with using a different machine, and I thought that 3D printing something like this size would be probably about 3 times longer than each one of these pin backings. I thought it would be more efficient to like cut it out of the wood, but I don't know. I'm still debating on whether or not I like the way that the resin even looks on this, because I think my resin applying technique needs to be improved. But this is also kind of like a large surface, so I don't know. We're gonna work with it a little bit more, play around with it a little more, and see if I can still use this method. But I'm not as happy with how these magnets turned out as I am with how the pins turned out. They're just not as clean and as professional looking, I think. So that's what I spent my week doing. And yeah, I just want to encourage every other adult out there who's ever thought to themselves, I don't have time to do this, or I can't do this. It's okay to give yourself permission to say, I don't want to do this. I'm not interested in doing this. But if you are interested in doing something, you can make time. There are ways. Maybe not now. Maybe not in your current situation. But don't give up on making some time for yourself, because time spent investing in yourself, learning skills, not for profit, not for marketing yourself, not for productivity's sake, but for your own ownership. To be able to say to yourself, this is mine, and I did this, and I know how to do this, and I can do this, only builds on itself the more you do it. I don't really tell myself I can't do anything anymore. Maybe that was always like a stubborn part of me. I give myself permission to say I'm not interested enough in something to pursue it. And sometimes there's things that I probably should be more interested in pursuing that would be more beneficial, more effective, or relevant to my life if I pursued them, but I just don't have the interest. I would rather like delegate those tasks, or hire out those tasks to somebody else, because I just don't currently have the interest in it. But the things that I am interested in, I don't like to say that I can't do it or I don't have time to do it. I think that there's no better use of my time. So I'm gonna make time for those things. It's just what makes life fun and rewarding to me. I look forward to it. It makes me excited to wake up in the morning. And if I didn't have those things, I guess I don't think that I could have as much fun in life. Those are the things that keep me going. And I think that in the modern industrial age of efficiency, there can be too much efficiency where things just kind of stop being fun. Okay, that's just my 2 cents for the day, and hope you have a good upcoming week. I look forward to it, and whatever you're working on or thinking about working on, don't forget to enjoy the process. Bye.